Alright guys, today we're going to be covering the story of Sister Ping, born Chang Chui Ping on January 9th, 1949 in Fujian, China, also known as the mother of all snakeheads. Now, a snakehead is basically a human smuggler. But before we can get into her operation, we're gonna have to bring it back to the beginning. So she was born in a poor farming village in Fujian, China. Grew up in a family of 5 children, and her father also worked as a smuggler and was deported from the US. So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, as you can see. In 1969, she married a man from a neighboring village. They had their first daughter in 1973 and later on had 3 sons. In 1981, she applied to be a nanny for a family in New York City, which she was approved of, passed through Canada, and in November 1981, she settled in Chinatown, Manhattan. She built a legitimate business when she got here that catered to homesick Fujianese immigrants. Now, during this time, she lived over in Brooklyn in the Bed-Stuy area at 14 Monroe Street in Knickerbocker Village. Now, her network was quite vast and intricate. She was able to forge very accurate documents, helped finance ships that flowed from the Rockaway beaches in Queens over the seas to China. Now, her operation was active from 1984 to 2000. That's 16 years. And roughly the estimates are saying 3,000 plus people annually she was bringing into the country every year, charging anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 per person. So she was raking in heavy money. To protect her interests, obviously she couldn't do it alone, so she aligned herself with the Fuqing, which was another gang in Chinatown. It wasn't just the Ghost Shadows and the Flying Dragons. There were other gangs in operation, and the Fuqing was another major player, and they had big money behind them in this snakehead operation led by Sister Ping. Funny enough, before her alliance with the Fuqing, there was a lot of hostility because of her illegal money transferring business that she had. AK, who was the Dai Lo, or the leader of the Fuqing, targeted her home 2 separate times, stealing money from her refrigerator. But despite that, they were able to work things out and establish a fruitful relationship. Unfortunately, on 2 separate occasions, there was tragedy brought among her ships. Once in 1998, where a ship capsized off the coast of Guatemala and 14 people unfortunately died. And in 1993, a ship ran aground off Rockaway Beach where 10 people drowned. And that incident increased the scrutiny and the magnifying glass on Sister Ping's operation. Now, obviously, a lot of these poor Chinese migrants didn't have the funds immediately available to pay back this $30,000 to $40,000 that they owed Sister Ping. So they had to work in a lot of these kitchens that you would see in Chinatown restaurants to work off their debt. And if they weren't paying off their debt, you already know what happened. Typically, they weren't being killed because they're definitely not going to get their money that way, but they would inflict harm and threaten and do other things to make sure they got their bread. But here's the thing, a lot of these people, even though they were working to the bone to pay back this money, a lot of them at the end of the day still felt indebted to her and her services. So even though what she was doing was illegal, according to the United States, for her people, she was almost like a folk hero in some instances. Now, she actually didn't even get captured in the United States, but she got captured in Hong Kong on money laundering charges and was extradited back to the US. And in 2006, she was convicted in a federal court for human smuggling, money laundering, hostage taking, not because of her, but because of the organization she was tied to, and she received 35 years in prison. She passed away at the age of 65 in Texas, and she had a funeral in Chinatown, which was huge. So like I said, for her constituents, her countrymen, she was held in high regard. It was like a mob send-off, like how you would imagine an Al Capone type funeral procession. That's how hers was. Lots of cars and lots of people mourning her, because at the end of the day, they would not have been able to get into this country. No matter the price tag, no matter how hard they had to work to pay that debt off, at the end of the day, they felt like without her, they wouldn't even had a chance to make it here.